And welcome into the Radio Days edition of Now and Next. This week I got a chance to sit in with Jim Richards on Newstalk 1010 in Toronto.
You're listening to Jim Richards on Newstalk 1010 Toronto.
Believe it or not, we've got how to fill up your gas tank tips. There are tips. You might be doing it wrong, and it could save you money. This guy is going to be on the show a little bit later on.
Y'all are getting ripped off when you're filling up your gas tank for your car, and here's why. There's 4 things you need to know that scientifically get you more gas while you're filling up your tank.
All right. I'm going to let you know a little bit later on. Also, a comic roundtable. That's right. Stand-up comedians decide whether or not Bill Maher's award from the Kennedy Center, Kennedy Center, is tainted. It's the Mark Twain Award for Humor. Is that tainted since it's been taken over by Trump? But first, ladies and gentlemen, we look back on quite a week. It's the week back at Queen's Park. I think they might already be on another half-year break. But let's check in with the man who is the host of The Ledge. That is one of the more popular political podcasts in the province. I think that to be true. And also you can hear him Sundays on News Talk 1010. Let's say hi to our friend Dave Trafford. Dave, thank you very much for your time.
Hello, Jim. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Chief Executive Producer at Story Studio Network and the host of The Ledge. So, it's got to be one of the more popular podcasts talking about provincial affairs, no?
It is for us. We sure enjoy doing it. So, and we get good feedback on it. Tim Hudak is a regular on the roundtable, along with Kathleen Wynne. So the two of them have oftentimes spirited disagreements and oftentimes vigorously agree on what's going on. And last week was a really good example where both Tim and the Premier kind of, had a squinty-eyed view of what was going on with the FOI that you and I talked about, I guess, last week. The plans to curb the FOI Act here in Ontario, and not quite sure that it was the best thing to do. So we have good fun, and what I like about it is that there is some partisanship, but it's respectful. And last week, Kathleen Wynne and John Wright had a rather spirited, robust debate over the state of school board trustees. So, and it was very good, and it's context, right? So we enjoyed it.
I've already heard this week's version, and there's a couple of things that you talk about. One of them is gas prices, and shockingly how absent it was from the budget. I think we're the most shocked on it, but there's nothing there for one of the biggest things. They've already got rid of the provincial tax on it, but there's nothing there for people who are really hurting right now.
Well, and I think it's not even so much what can you do. Keith Leslie was commenting, saying, they've already cut their tax and they can move on. Otherwise, it's a no-win situation. My point, though, is that there isn't a real sense among people, I think, that this government is looking at what's affecting them on a daily basis. I just spent the grandkids' inheritance at the grocery store this afternoon. So, that kind of stuff is just where it wears thin. And, and I asked the question in the podcast of John Wright, do budgets really resonate with people? I guarantee you Monday, more people will be talking about how the Blue Jays did with their home opener than we're talking about the budget today. But it's important. And where does it get to this issue around affordability? Where does it get to the issue around making sure that am I better off next year at this time than I am today? And I think that's a question we got to ask.
I remember to that point, when Trudeau once upon a time said people don't care about budgets, people laughed at him. I probably did back in the day. Do they matter? Well, do they matter to this government or any government getting reelected? Do they matter to in difficult times? And we've had back to back difficult times when we talk about are we near a recession? It seems like since COVID, we have kind of been on the ropes. But is a government of the time, should they be outraged at their own deficit in the face of trying to do things that are going to keep the province afloat?
We're going to get to a debt close to $500 billion in the foreseeable future. And that is just, unthinkable. What's worse is that we've got a government here who hasn't seen a bucket, doesn't like to spend. I come back. I heard the finance minister on John Moore this morning, and Peter Bethlen-Folvey, by all accounts, a great guy, and he will oftentimes send notes to the podcast through Tim Hudak about what we got wrong. But when he says, we've increased the healthcare spending, we're flirting with $100 million a year. Now, my question is next year, by this time, when he stands up in the House to deliver his next budget, are we going to see measurable changes to the delivery service in healthcare? It's great that they're building more buildings and they're setting up schools and making more room for doctors and medical schools, etc. But there's still people who are being treated in the hallways. They're sitting in waiting room chairs being treated. So where's the measurable difference going to be there, right?
Yeah, 100%. But I wonder, when we talk about the deficit, I don't know that the people who are voting today, how many of those people are really concerned about what we're going to be leaving our kids. I think they're concerned about making their next paycheck and doing those things. And I think whether it's right or wrong, Dave, I think that's what they're looking to the government to do, to make their life easier today rather than that kind of like if there's a scale on what would, worrying about deficits.
That might be true, but they're not doing it. If this were a case where all of a sudden I could look at it and say, wow, I just saved $100 a month by doing this. Okay, I can get to that and I can get ahead and make sure that my credit card's paid off where the government's racking up its own credit card. And yeah, my grandkids are going to be paying for that. So for all of the back patting that they do about, well, we never raise taxes, well, that's a problem. That's a revenue problem. Now, oddly enough, the economy's good, revenues are up, but the spending is way out of control. And I had a chance to talk to Jessica Smith-Cross today. We did another podcast hit just to review what had gone on because we recorded yesterday before the minister stood up. And they had a piece today by Brian Lewis, and he's an economist with the C.D. Howe Institute. And his point was, if you know that there are pressures, and they knew that there were pressures, be transparent about it. Say up front, we are going to face these kinds of pressures, and it means that this, and this around spending. The goalposts keep changing for this government, whether it's how we're going to get to balanced budget, whether or not we're going to actually be spending on more or less on healthcare services, education, etc. Our service on debt right now outspends post-secondary education. That is crazy.
That's outrageous.
Right? To your point, there are lots of families right now who are looking at that. Their kids are going to be paying OSAP at higher loan rates, and we're spending more on the government money they're having to borrow for things like, building an island to put the convention center on. So, that's going to come home soon.
Okay, Abacus Data, you mentioned this upcoming weekend, one of the things you'll get into, on behalf of the Canadian Union for Public Employees, with a poll saying that Ontarians, 60% of them are concerned about FOI. I don't know. That's like a union that wants that number. I'd like to see what the question was for that. So Abacus Data, clearly very credible, but do you get the feeling that average Ontarian, Torontonian, if you stopped them on the street, knows what FOI is?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a legitimate question and a concern. All the more reason why opposition and media need to stand up to this. The question and the clip that we used in the podcast was a rather lengthy one, but it was a good one because the reporter said to the premier, are you not being transparent? And the premier went on and said, well, 95% of this, that, and the other thing is not covered by it. Jessica Smith-Cross went in deep on this, and she explained exactly what it means. Only 4% of the FOI applications are media. So there are lots of people in business, lots of people out there doing research, everything else, where they're using the FOI system to get information that is otherwise hidden by the government, including your MPPs or your cabinet minister's schedule on a daily basis. Who are they meeting with? Simple questions. So that's what it gets to. We aren't going to know, for example, who's going to run this big investment fund for $4 billion to kickstart our economic growth. Who's going to be on that board? Who is actually going to be approached to be part of it? If the FOI system goes away, we may never find out.
Dave, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Have a great weekend, Jim.
Check out the podcast, The Ledge, everything you need to know about going on at Queen's Park. It's on Sundays here on Newstalk 1010.
Now and Next is an Eye Contact production.